In our last lesson, we focused at great length on the lives of some of the pastoral nomadic communities of the northern parts of India. Now, in this lesson, let us now travel to the western and southern parts of the country and learn about the lives of those communities that we come across in these regions. Now, we begin with the Dhangar. The Dhangar was an important pastoral community of Maharashtra. So here on this map, you can locate the Indian state of Maharashtra, and in parts of Maharashtra, this important pastoral community called the Dhangar lived. Now, in the beginning of the 20th century, around 400,000 Dhangars lived in Maharashtra. So from this, we can understand that they were numerically quite dominant in this Indian state of Maharashtra. Now, when we talk about that this pastoral nomadic community was quite numerically dominant, I am sure you are questioning, how did these Dhangars earn their livelihood? Well, most of them were shepherds, buffalo herders, as well as blanket weavers. Now, we have learned that the nomadic pastoral communities depend mostly upon their animals for their sustenance. So, it goes without saying that these people, as in these Dhangars of Maharashtra, used to earn their livelihood and sustain themselves by being shepherds and buffalo herders. And along with that, they also used to weave blankets which they sold in order to get money and sustain themselves. Now, in the last lesson, we talked about the practice of transhumance as it was practiced by certain pastoral communities that lived in the northern parts of India. But do you think these were the only pastoral communities in the country that had to move from one region to another following certain seasonal patterns? Most definitely not. While in the northern regions, these communities, as in the Gujars or even the Gaddis, had to follow the onset of winter, in the southern and the western parts, the pastoral nomadic communities had to follow the onset of monsoon. So, this cyclical pattern of movement was very much prevalent among these pastoral nomadic communities as well, but it was not because of the onset of winter. In this case, it is the onset of monsoon. Because here we need to take into account the topography of this region. In the northern parts, winters are bitter, but in Maharashtra we do not get bitter winters. So, there is no reason to move following the onset of winter. Now, the Dhangar shepherds used to live in the semi-arid region in the central plateau of Maharashtra during the monsoon. So, here this is the Indian state of Maharashtra, and here we can locate the central plateau, and the Dhangar shepherds used to live in this region during the monsoon. Now, the central plateau region is quite dry in nature, which is why the Dhangars could grow only bajra in this region. Now, this tract of land or this region does not facilitate the growth of other crops, which is why the Dhangars could grow only bajra in this region. Now, after the Dhangars harvested the bajra that they grew in this region, that is in the central plateau region, they then moved to another region. Now, where did they move? The Dhangar shepherds then moved to the fertile Konkan region. So, try to understand this very clearly. The Dhangar shepherds could grow only bajra in the central plateau region, and bajra is a kharif crop, that is to say it is harvested by October, and following the harvest of bajra, these Dhangar shepherds then moved to the fertile Konkan region. Now, this Konkan region is a coastal region that lies alongside Arabian Sea, and this region receives very high rainfall, which is why it is very fertile in nature. Now, the Konkani peasants who till the lands here and pursue agriculture in this region grow many kinds of crops. And after they harvest all these kharif crops, the lands here also need to be cultivated. Now who comes to the rescue in this respect? Well, the dhangar flocks now come to the rescue, because the dhangar flocks now manure the land after the harvest of the kharif crops in this region. So the dhangar flocks prove very useful to the Konkani peasants. Now the dhangar flocks survive on the fodder that is available here. They also eat the stubble. As in, stubble is the straw that is obtained after it is removed from any cereal, and it helps as a very good source of sustenance or a very good fodder for cattle. And in this way, when the dhangar shepherds move to the Konkan region, they are also heartily welcomed by the Konkani peasants. Now the Konkani peasants also provide the dhangar shepherds rice, because we have learnt that in this dry central plateau region the dhangar shepherds cannot grow anything but bajra. This region is not very fertile and it is very dry in nature. So the Konkani peasants also give them rice, which the dhangars take back with them when they move to the central plateau region during the monsoon. Now before proceeding with this lesson, let me ask you a question. After harvesting bajra, to which of these coastal regions did the dhangar move? Did they move to the Malabar coast, to the Coromandel coast, to the Konkan coast, or to the northern circus? Well, the correct answer is the Konkan coast. After harvesting bajra that they used to grow in the dry central plateau region, the dhangar shepherds moved to the Konkan region. Now we have discussed that the Konkan region receives very high rainfall, and during monsoon the amount of rainfall here gets so high that it becomes difficult for the flocks of the dhangar shepherds to survive in this region. Now the sheep cannot at all tolerate the wet monsoon of the Konkan region, which is why during the onset of monsoon the dhangars again move back to the central plateau region where they originally stay. Now, having discussed about the dhangars who lived in the western part of India, that is in the Indian state of Maharashtra, let us now move a little southwards towards the Indian states of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Well, here we have the Gollas, the Kurumas and the Kurubas. Well, these were very important pastoral communities that inhabited the dry central plateau of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. So these pastoral communities also used to live in regions which are very dry in nature, regions that do not produce many kinds of crops. Now, how did these people sustain themselves in this dry central plateau? Well, the Gollas herded cattle, and the Kurumas and Kurubas reared sheep and goats, and they also sold blankets. So this is the way in which the Gollas, the Kurumas and the Kurubas sustained themselves. Now, along with taking care of their own sustenance, these pastoral communities have to take care of their flocks as well, because it is these animals that help the pastoral communities survive and exist. Without the animals, these communities won't exist. Now, during the dry season, this central plateau region gets excessively dry and heated up, and it becomes very difficult for these pastoral nomadists to look for proper grazing lands for their animals, which is why in the dry season these pastoralists moved to the coastal regions. Now, the coastal regions receive very high rainfall. We talked about how the Konkan region that lies adjacent to the states of Maharashtra and Karnataka receives very high rainfall, and with very high rainfall grows different kinds of crops, and at the same time the grasslands are also filled with new vegetation cover. So it is in these coastal regions that the pastoralists go for pastures and grazing lands for their animals during the dry seasons. But during monsoon, it gets excessively wet in the coastal regions. These regions get so high rainfall that often various parts of these regions get flooded. Now, what do you think do these pastoral communities do when it gets very wet in the coastal regions? Now, let me tell you something about these animals that these pastoral communities herded. Apart from buffaloes that really love staying in swampy wet regions, most animals cannot survive in very high rainfall regions, which is why these pastoral communities are then compelled to move to the dry central plateau during the monsoon. So during monsoon, the pastoral communities moved back to the dry plateau, the region that they left during the summer seasons, during the dry seasons. So from this we can understand that mobility is a great factor that determines the course of the lives of different pastoral nomadic communities. Because if they cannot move from one region to another, they will not be able to sustain themselves, their flocks will die, their communities will come to an absolute end. So it is absolutely necessary for them to keep on moving from one region to another, following various seasonal patterns, be that the onset of winter in the northern regions or the onset of monsoon and dry seasons in the dry central plateau regions of southern and western parts of India. Now, we have learned that these pastoral nomadic communities have to move over very long distances in search of great pastures for their animals. And when we talk about this movement over very long stretches, we should definitely mention the Banjaras. Well, who were the Banjaras? The Banjaras were an important group of graziers who were found in the villages of Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. If you look closely at this map, you will be able to locate these Indian states of Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. Well, over these regions were spread the Banjaras, who were an important group of graziers. Now, how did these Banjaras sustain themselves? Because they were always on the move. Their life was never about settling down somewhere even for a particular season. And so, these Banjaras sold their plough, cattle and different other groups to the villagers in exchange of grain and fodder. So, whenever they moved to any region, whenever they moved to any new village, they sold their plough, cattle and whatever goods they had in exchange for grain for themselves and fodder for their animals. Now, after that, when we talk about these Banjaras who were very densely located in Rajasthan, we should also mention another pastoral community of Rajasthan, which would be the Raikas. Now, the Raikas live in the desert regions of Rajasthan. Now, the life of these Raikas is very interesting if we see this from the point of their mobility. Well, why is it so? This is because prior to 1947, when India was under colonial rule, the Raikas could move freely in this region because India and Pakistan were not separate countries at that point of time. Now, these Raikas, as we learned, lived in Rajasthan, and prior to India's independence, they were free to move to the Sindh region. Now, why do you think did they move to the Sindh region? This is because the Indus Valley in the Sindh region is very fertile, and this served as very good grazing lands for their animals, which is why they moved from Rajasthan to the Sindh region in search for very good pastures for their animals. But unfortunately for this pastoral community, following India's partition in 1947, this community is no longer able to move between India and Pakistan this freely, because these two countries are now separate and they now can no longer move to the Sindh region only in search of pastures for their animals. Well, from Rajasthan, the Raikas are often moving towards Haryana in today's world in search of pastures for their animals. Now let us look at this zoomed in map of Rajasthan closely. Now the Raikas of Barmer, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur and Bikaner stayed in their homes during the monsoon. Now here we can see certain places in Rajasthan like Barmer, Jodhpur, Bikaner, Jaisalmer. Now we know that Rajasthan is a desert region and it remains very dry and hot in this entire region throughout the year. It is only during monsoon that Rajasthan receives still less amount of rainfall, which is why the Raikas of this region stay in their homes itself during the monsoon. Now during monsoon, when Rajasthan receives at least some amount of rainfall, pasture lands are replenished and these Raikas are able to feed their flocks in this region. But after monsoon gives way to winter, this region again gets very dry, which is why by October, the Raikas of these different regions move to new areas. They move to new areas in search of pastures for their animals because this entire region gets very dry and heated up. And when it's monsoon again in this region, the Raikas come back to their homes so that their animals can feed on the fodder grown in this region. Now when we talk about the Raikas, we need to take into account that various communities together make up the Raikas, as in there are many Raika groups, among which the Maru Raikas herded camels. Now Rajasthan is a desert, as we know, and camels are called the sheep of the desert. This is something that all of us know because camels are still now the main mode of transport through the deserts of Rajasthan. So camels are an integral part of Rajasthan and the Maru Raikas herded camels. Now in Rajasthan there are many fairs in which these camels are taken for display. Now in these camel fairs, the Maru Raikas also displayed their expertise in training their camels. And here many other pastoral communities came with their own animals like horses, sheep or even goats. So what we can understand from this discussion on the lives of the nomadic pastoral communities is that life is not at all easy for them. Their life is all about movement. They are always on the go because they have to take care of their animals and they have to be constantly on the lookout for proper grazing lands for their animals. So mobility and freedom are very essential in order to help these pastoral communities survive. Now in a subsequent lesson, we will be focusing on a time when the lives of these nomadic pastoral communities went under drastic changes. That is to say, in our subsequent lesson, we will be focusing on how their lives underwent great changes with the onset of colonial rule in India. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it's rewarding too. So register for free now.